Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot. Oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girlz Radio. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my fabulous, very accurate numerologist, Patricia Kirkman. PK, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be doing the show again and not have to talk about that terrible stuff.
Well, we've both been watching it on Facebook. People have gotten extremely creative. I mean, I'm constantly entertained by the songs that are being posted, the articles that are being. There's a lot of energy going into that.
Oh, yes, but a lot of it's negative. Scary.
I know. Well, it's all right. It's going to blow over, I think. So
I hope so. Strong winds are needed to clear the air for sure.
Yeah, winds of change. So you've got number information for us. What's going on? We came to the fire. Here we are. What's happening?
Well, today, you're working on a 9-day. It's kind of ending and wrapping up a lot of things, but we really don't know how to get it all put together because it's kind of like business as usual, assisting making things happen. But there's the need to know without being told that people feel that they're supposed to do. It's kind of like a sharing of the heart, but the best of times is don't expect to receive anything if you give. Just accept the fact that giving in itself is good for you right now. We all need that little extra pat on the back, even if we have to give it to ourselves.
Okay,
Tomorrow's,
we can do that?
Oh, yeah, we're going to have to do that because there's nobody out there ready to make the leap. But tomorrow is going to be a one universal day. So looking into that, it's going to be more of a special day because it's good for projects of any kind, but it's also going to bring some things to fruition. Nothing is going to come that's going to be easy, but yet on behalf of others, you'll be making changes and choices that are going to actually, in the end, be much better. It's a strange month because the month is about our sensitive side and trying to be a team player and a partner without melting down. That's part of what's going on across the country right now. They're having too many meltdowns.
They certainly are.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know why.
Yes, and I'm going to be very kind and keep my mouth shut on that one. So how are you surviving all this changes?
I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think it's great to see so many people engaged. I don't like to see the violence. I think that's terrible.
Right.
And needs to stop. And violence against people that you don't agree with, that's not acceptable.
Well, that wasn't the way it was set out. Yeah.
Suck it up and let's move on and make the country great again and do all the things that we need to do to keep bringing the light. The light has come out. It's shown the light on the media. It showed the light on Soros and his shenanigans. It showed the light on a lot of stuff. And now I am waiting for Julian Assange, who's done such a magnificent job with WikiLeaks, to come forward with more of the UFO stuff that's been hidden. I want to see that.
I would like to see that take place, too. And I think we may, before this year is over, get another peek at what's taking place. Yeah, because you know what? Next month is going to be all about communications of all forms.
Wow.
That's what I'm kind of looking forward to. I think there's going to be some things.
Good. Yeah, finally.
It's going to be gossiping or a big blast of something that we really need to pay attention to.
Won't that be nice? Well, I hope it is about the truth about UFOs and extraterrestrials. We all deserve to hear about that. And maybe Julian will be a willing partner in divulging whatever he's found from his wonderful sources.
That would be certainly great, wouldn't it?
It would be. I watched an interview with him And he said, no, they've never ever had to retract anything they put out. They have 100% accuracy in what they're putting out there. So again, the UFO stuff, we pretty much know what's going on. We've had some great experts on our show that have enlightened us. And I think they really did know and do know what they're talking about. But it'll be nice to see it in black and white from Julian or Anonymous or one of those places that gets into those dark corners and brings it up to the light. So we're all ready. We're ready for it.
I think that's a great idea. Wouldn't that be a good way to start the new year?
Oh, yes. Have a little, conversation with your extraterrestrial friends. Why not?
Invite them for dinner. What the heck?
Hey, yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, there is so much going on in the paranormal world today, too. I got to tell you, I posted a bunch of stuff on our Facebook page, Supernatural Girlz with a Z on Facebook. Please go there, give us a like, take a look at our stories. One of the stories is about Russia. They say they've been communicating and calling forth UFOs to come visit them for the last 30 years.
I believe it. We're always behind the times.
We are. We are just so behind it. And so now, anyways, they're talking about it. I know other governments are talking about it. I want to know what they did to calm them down. I want to know what their techniques are. I want to find out more about that, don't you?
I think it'd be a good idea. I think if we put out there that we're interested in sharing instead of this, what we're going to do to them if they get here, this fear factor that we've put out for so many years, now that we're actually interested in learning and sharing, maybe they'll get that picture instead of the other one.
I hope so. Let's all be friends. So
I'll invite him to dinner. I don't care.
I will too. We'll have a wonderful dinner. Hey, we've got a great guest coming up in a few minutes tonight. And I'll tell you something. His book, Christopher Balzano wrote a book. It's called Dark Woods. Scared the crap out of me.
It is scary, isn't it?
It was, wasn't it? It was a great book. I'm telling you what, it was terrific. And I said to Melissa, who does our tweeting while we're live on the air, I was so glad I read it during the day.
I agree with you.
And
it makes you kind of look around corners when you walk outside.
Especially me. I'm in Massachusetts, and this is what it's about: is the Freetown, State Forest, and all the goings on in there. I mean, they got everything in this forest.
Friendly neighbors. That's what you've got.
Oh God!
They want to bring you into it.
So
Yeah, some of them, I'm having a hard time trying to pronounce their name of who they are. The name itself sometimes scares the heck out of you.
I know it. I saw a show once about the Pukwudgies, and they were some scary little beasts. So we're going to hear from Chris. He's going to give us the lowdown on this place, and I will probably never, ever go there.
Well, there's no one-way ticket to that place, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, there is a one-way ticket.
You want a return trip.
I do. So the other thing that I wrote that I'm talking about tonight for Paranormal News, and I also posted on our Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter, too, by the way. That's always going to be fun because Melissa puts out really great tweets. So there are all of these mysterious cases of time slips. Now, these are wild stories, and I love them because the people that experience them are very credible. And they had people, for example, in Liverpool on Bold Street. Now, this is a good one. This is in 1996, in July, Saturday afternoon, Frank and his wife, Carol, were visiting Liverpool's Bold Street to do some shopping. So Frank and Carol split up, just like a good horror movie. It's always a bad idea to split up. Frank went to HMV and Carol went to Dylan's bookstore. And as Frank was walking up the incline near the post office, he suddenly noticed that there was this strange oasis of quiet. Now, that's a sign, everybody. You know, you're going to hear this over and over again tonight in the forest stuff, too. And so suddenly he sees a small box van, which looks exactly like something from the 1950s. And it speeds across his path, honking its horn, narrowly missing him. And he noticed the name on the van was Kaplan's. So when he looked back at the van, he noticed that it was actually standing in the middle of the road. He then crossed the other side and noticed that Dylan's bookstore had Cripps' name above the door. He looked into the store and saw women's handbags and shoes instead of books.
Mhm.
So looking around, he sees all the people were dressed in 1940s fashion. He sees a young girl in her 20s dressed in some lime-colored top, and she's carrying a handbag that had a popular brand name on it, which made Frank think maybe he was still in 1996. So he follows the girl into the store. As he enters the store with the girl, the interior of the store completely changes in a flash. So anyways,
No,
the
that's
girl,
not good.
no, he had followed, suddenly turns to leave, and he grabs her arm and said, "Did you see that?" She said, "Yeah, I thought it was a clothes shop. I was going to look around, but it's a bookshop."
Mm-hmm.
Very strange, but he made it back to this time. But that's just one of many stories of people that have slipped into another time or slipped into another reality. And thank God this guy and that girl made it back.
Yeah, I wonder what would happen if they're both in that same place, that time zone flips, and one of them doesn't make it back.
Yeah. What would that be?
Mm.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I've never experienced a time slip, so I can't tell you what it's like firsthand, but certainly these people did. So very cool stuff. So now,
Scary.
yeah.
Scary for sure. I've had a few brain flips, but not way to go.
Yes, we've all had those. So tonight we have Chris Balzano. He is a teacher and a writer originally from the Boston area. He's in Florida now, though, he informed us. And he is the founder and director of Massachusetts Paranormal Crossroads, an online collection of legends and ghost stories from Massachusetts and the surrounding states. He's been a paranormal investigator for more than 10 years, probably going on, 14 years by now? And he's been writing about all of these experiences, and we are lucky enough to have him here with us tonight. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's actually going on 20 now.
20?
Oh, wow.
Yes, and just in case any of your listeners are wildly trying to Google that website, you would need a time slip because that website hasn't been in existence for about 4 years.
See that?
Uh-huh.
Goodness, you corrected
So
that.
just to clean the slate before we start. So
Yeah, and
What is the new one?
Yeah, what is the
my new website now is trippingonlegends.wordpress.com.
Okay, that's
Okay.
a mouth.
That's where I do the majority of my posting. So
Okay. Good
All
to
right,
know.
well, make sure you say that again so people get it. What was it? One more time?
Tripping on Legends, like legend tripping, but tripping on legends.wordpress.com. It's much more of a blog that I'm running now. I've taken a very different perspective on the paranormal in the past 10 years.
Oh, good. Well, we'll have to hear about that change. So you wrote this very spooky book, Dark Woods, and it's excellent. We both loved it, and it was spooky as heck. Now, how did you get into this with the Freetown Forest? How did you find out about it?
You know, I was working at Suffolk University, the law library in Boston, and my boss was a fanatic about the paranormal. By that time, I'd started to become familiar with some of the areas in what's known as the Bridgewater Triangle. And my boss was from a town that was in the Bridgewater Triangle. And he used to be very liberal with my time. He used to say, "Hey, here's an interesting story. Yeah, just take an hour and follow it up."
Wow.
So I would be able to stop my library duties and satisfy his need to know about a ghost in a certain area of Massachusetts.
Good.
And he just kind of strolled into my office one day and he said, "Hey, you know about Freetown, right?" I said, my dad had taken a trip to West Africa. I'm like, "Yeah, like Sierra Leone." No, Freetown, Massachusetts. You got to check that out. And he kind of started back towards the door and then he turned around and he's like, "I don't know. They got some crazy psychic detective out there. I don't know. You find out the information. Get back to me." And when he did that, I always knew that I had a little bit of free time that I was able to work on it. And I started researching this, and there was very little out there at the time. This is, 2000, 2001, 2002 maybe, and there was not a lot of information out there on the internet about very specific things. And so what I began finding about Freetown was nothing about ghosts, nothing about a lot of the paranormal things that I would come to eventually discover. But it was all about this really this heightened level of crime and these really weird crimes that were coming out of that area, satanic rituals in the forest, and unexplained crimes and disappearances and kidnappings and murders. And I found the detective he was referring to, and his name's Alan Alves. And this was a man who, in a small town in terms of population like Freetown, probably should have gone his whole career without ever investigating a murder or investigating anything that would have made a bleep on the news with this quiet little town, and ended up, because Freetown is not a quiet little town, this man investigated over 24 homicides in his time there.
Jeez.
And as I discovered, the more I worked with him, he became an expert in occult crime and would be called in to investigate or to consult for cases all across the country and all across the world. Actually, there was even a case in Sweden that they brought him in on. And it started to roll around in my head this very odd question that I'd already started to kind of formulate as I was working on the Bridgewater Triangle. And that was, one of the cornerstones of this Bridgewater Triangle is the Bridgewater State Prison, which is a prison for the criminally insane.
Wow.
A lot of sex offenders end up going there. That's how I became connected with it, because I used to teach students who would end up going to Bridgewater State if they weren't able to complete our program, because they were convicted juvenile criminals. Mm-hmm. And all the time you were hearing about suicides from the prison and from the hospital. And that's not necessarily as frequent as you might think. And I started to notice that there were more suicides happening in that facility than facilities across Massachusetts. And
Wow.
then I started to notice that there is a road called Route 24. And Route 24, I always think of as the spine of the Bridgewater Triangle. It kind of runs down the center and then the towns kind of branch off from it. I would always hear on the news reports as I was driving to work on 93 or 95, wherever I was going, that there would be a really horrible accident on 24, and there were fatalities. Mm. And so I started to formulate this kind of theory or this idea. I'm like, if there's a heightened sense of mental health disorder, and there's a heightened number of fatal accidents in this area, could there be a connection between the paranormal and these other things that we usually just kind of pass off? In other words, can the same area that draws or at least kind of traps paranormal energy into it, can it also cause that area to experience heightened levels of crime and unexplained crime? Can the mystery of what is a ghost or what might be some of these things also extend to, can that negative energy that they create or that they attract actually influence our everyday life in terms of crime and mental health and divorce and things like that? And so that was kind of the question that drove Dark Woods.
That's a great question.
Yeah, and a really long answer to your question. So, but
No, that's a good one. I mean,
I think it gets to the heart of what I was looking to do in that book. It wasn't just going to be a collection of these stories. It was really trying to make sense that you can have an active serial killer living alongside this, an enormous amount of zombie eyewitness accounts. And are those two things connected at all?
Yeah, I mean, you have everything written about in that forest, from zombies to people all of a sudden, one minute they're fine, the next minute they're jumping off a ledge and committing suicide. You've got the Pukwudgies, which are particularly scary, a witch that tries to entrance people. I mean, there's just everything and anything you can think of going on in this woods. Now, let me just ask you, before we go more deeply into these stories, more deeply into the dark woods, we have a question for you from Tricia in the chat room. She wants to know, are police relatively open to exploring the supernatural when it comes to cult cases?
When it comes to cult cases, they are. And when it comes to occult cases, they're not as. So if we're adding the O and the C, the extra O and the C, they're a little more hesitant to investigate, only because they don't believe in that kind of thing. They want to play it hardline. They don't think that the occult, even in its most mundane fashion, like bleeds into our normal world. A crime is a crime, and it's straight, and it's for greed, or it's for love or lust, or it's for power, not necessarily those kind of things. And actually, what Alan Alls told me was when he began in the late 60s, early 70s, they were much more open to cult crime, no OC, just straight C cult crime. And that's why he became an expert in it, and there was so much going on. But then two things interfered with him. The first thing that interfered is people really began to, some of the cults that he was investigating began to really press on him about First Amendment rights. Like, in other words, you're investigating my group of people specifically because we are part of a cult, and therefore you're violating our First Amendment right of religion.
Oh, boy.
And then the second part of that was, as he dug deeper and he kind of peeled away the onion of these different layers of cult crimes that were going on, the police, many of them, and the state and the town local governments were just as involved as in the cults as anyone, that you might see on the street. And so he ran into resistance for that.
Yeah, can see where that would happen.
His bosses were the very people that he was looking to investigate, in other words.
Ooh, we know how that works out.
Yes.
Not so well.
But I think that this, it's a lot. When a lot of these things were happening, it was a very different time. It was right before the explosion of these repressed memory cult sexual molestation cases, which kind of had their heart in Massachusetts as well. And so people post, especially that era, were much more of like, we're leaving that kind of stuff alone. So I think the climate has changed. It's gone back to law enforcement being a little bit more open, but I think a lot of that has to do with just the paranormal in general having a bigger influence on our pop culture and our culture today than it did 30 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot more acceptance than there ever was. So that's all good. But you've got, like I said, everything in here. So what's the thing that you researched in Dark Woods that scared you the most?
Wow. It would probably be the Pukwudgies.
Yes, me too. What about you, PK? Did they get you?
You got it. Exactly.
Let's talk about those things. What in the world are they?
Well, it's they're right now they're kind of a pop star in the paranormal field. Insofar as one of the new Harry Potter houses is Pukwudgies.
Really?
In the American version of Hogwarts, which is the name is escaping me right now. One of their four houses, one is Thunderbird, and one of them is Pukwudgie. So the Pukwudgie has actually made it big time. When I was researching this, there was literally one reference to Pukwudgie out there on the internet, and that was a kid's book. There were no websites dedicated to it. There was no chatter about it, and I came across the word after I'd already kind of started to encounter stories of them and had an encounter myself with one aspect of them. And then I was reading Joe Citro's Passing Strange, and he made a reference to Pukwudgies he was talking about the Dover Demon, which is a famous cryptid case in Massachusetts. And he said, maybe this was a Pukwudgie. And he spent maybe a paragraph talking about it. And I just started kind of piecing things together. I got some of the original source material for the kids' book, a book by the name The Narrow Land, which led me to 5 other sources, which started to have these really obscure references to these little monsters. And then really it's kind of Dark Woods that began Pukwudgie's kind of rise to fame, because then all of a sudden people were saying, well, yeah, that's like what I experienced. That must have been a Pukwudgie. And so the word, partly because it was explaining what a lot of people were experiencing, and partly because it's a really cool word. I think
it is that. It's cute.
Yeah, especially in the last 10 years, really caught on. And probably about maybe 7 years ago, I was asked to consult on a case on the television show Paranormal State. And they believed that this was a Pukwudgie. And I think since that moment especially, like Pukwudgies have just exploded, and the lore of them has kind of shifted. And as a folklorist, which is what I truly am, it's very interesting to see something I said in an interview 10 years ago with a question mark at the end, like, well, I don't know, maybe this is an idea now has become part of this rich tradition of the Pukwudgie. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. No, I didn't mean that it necessarily was. I'm just saying it was a possibility. Like, I didn't say anything about strawberries. I didn't really mean to. And now every reference to Pukwudgies has strawberries. So it's kind of an interesting little evolution.
It is. But describe them for our audience, please.
Sure.
What do they look like?
They are generally a 2 to 3 foot tall. The best way to explain it would be an extremely hairy troll. They have an elongated nose, usually kind of a belly that hangs over their waist. They have been described, and I'm starting to get the idea that there's more than one thing which people are calling Pukwudgies. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of an umbrella for, I think, a few different species. They're either covered in red hair, or they're covered in, what would best be described as human hair. They sometimes have been described as having blonde hair. Now, there's stuff in the folklore about them from years ago. I mean, these aren't something new. They've been in the Wampanoag Native American tribe folklore for 600-700 years. So it's not a new thing. But they tend to, in the stories, like wrap themselves in grass that has gone dry. And so they've been described as being blonde as well. And they are trickster spirits who used to be known to play practical jokes on the Wampanoag and kind of cause mischief. And then at some point in the Wampanoag history, they changed from being these little tricksters who would be like, look what the Pukwudgies did again, wah, 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 to being really being a blight on the Wampanoags. They would burn villages. They would kidnap people. They would kidnap babies, especially, and young people who are out in the woods. They would, in the lore, they are in many ways responsible for destroying the creator god. So these are mean little guys who nowadays they don't seem to necessarily be burning villages and things like that. They seem to be territorial instead. And so they might not necessarily attack people, although I've gotten some scattered reports of that. But they more of are discovered in the woods with people, by people, and then reappear to those people in almost a just so you know I know where you live kind of fashion. So don't be going around that forest again.
Yeah, you had somebody in the book who actually ran into one of these things, and then it was staring in her window at her.
Mm-hmm. There was one case, the case of Joan, who was walking her dog, and she came across the Pukwudgie in the woods. It's almost as if time froze. Then there was a noise. She looked back; it was gone. And then a little time later, she woke up. Just at like that kind of waking up you do when something bad is about to happen when you're asleep. And she looked, and this 3 foot tall person, this 3 foot tall Pukwudgie, was looking at her in a window that was about 5 feet off the ground, and just kind of staring at her and smiling at her. And she said that she never went into the forest after that. And so there have been a lot of different things attributed to them since Dark Woods first came out. And I think that there's definitely, first of all, I think every culture has a Pukwudgie. Pukwudgie just happens to be a really cool name for the ones that are in Massachusetts. And I do think there are different breeds of them. And I think people are having, in the documentary, the Bridgewater Triangle documentary, they have a story of one that tried to lure someone, and that one was almost completely covered in hair. That almost looked like a tiny Bigfoot. And some people believe that might have been a Pukwudgie. So, there's a lot of very interesting things about them.
We're going to keep going with the Pukwudgies. We're going to talk about them right after we get back from this very short break. So, stay tuned, everybody. You are listening to Supernatural Girlz Radio, and we will be right back.
listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
My name is Ezra, and I'm from thehighendend.org. You've heard of medical marijuana, but who can you trust for proper guidance? Here at thehighendend.org, we have all the information you need. Did you know that scientists have discovered cannabis can reduce inflammation, pain, and spasms? It's helped my patients reduce the symptoms of autoimmune diseases, PTSD, autism, and insomnia. A compound from hemp called CBD is doing wonders for intestinal issues, anxiety, and the nervous system. I sell this compound at thehighendend.org. I've worked as a medical marijuana consultant and educator for the past 6 years, and here at thehighendend.org, I can help you choose from the hundreds of cannabis strains and products and find the ones that are best for your needs. To learn more about cannabis, schedule a Skype or phone consultation, or to have a CBD product shipped right to your door, visit thehighendend.org. That's thehighendend, all one word, .org. I'll help make your health high-end.
Hi, can you hear my voice? Imagine how many other people can hear it too. If you have advertising needs, then look no further. The Inception Radio Network currently has openings for on-air advertisements and radio show sponsorships. Given any thought to your target demographic? Inception has you covered there too. Advertising on a network gives you multiple opportunities to advertise on a wide variety of radio show broadcasts, and we have one to fit every advertising need. You know, in recent years, internet radio has exhibited a phenomenal listener growth. An Arbitron Edison survey shows that online radio boosts at least 33 million unique visitors each week and 54 million each month. And that number amazingly continues to grow. And these listeners are a part of many businesses' core demographics. And surveys have shown that internet radio listeners are far more likely than regular radio listeners to spend money on a whole range of activities. You know, internet listeners vote, they dine out and eat fast food, and they grab a cup of coffee. And here's the interesting one. They buy items online at a much higher rate than all other market segments combined. Internet radio also enables businesses to connect with consumers during work hours, where increasingly more lifestyle decisions are being made. Advertise with the best. The Inception Radio Network offers competitive advertising rates to fit just about anyone's advertising budget. Stop by today at www.inceptionradionetwork.com or call us toll-free at 1-888-919-2355. Get the word out. Get results with the Inception Radio Network.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are you getting screwed on your property taxes? How to find out and how to fix it. Available on Amazon.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker. I'm here with my co-host, PK, all the way from Tucson, and our terrific guest tonight, very interesting, Chris Balzano, the author of 7 books in the paranormal field. But tonight, we are talking about a really spooky one. Dark Woods. Oh, my gosh. So we're talking about the Pukwudgie, but we've got a question here for you, Chris, from the chat room. It's from John. And he wants to know, is this common across the globe, this Pukwudgie thing, or is it local to the States, United States?
I think the local name for it is Pukwudgie. And in doing the research, now kind of more stories have come out, and I've found Pukwudgie folklore in upstate New York, in Indiana. It's they have a long history of Pukwudgies. But I think that these are creatures that exist all throughout the globe. In Australia, there's someone showed me a picture once of they have like an Oz festival, not the Oz festival, but like an Oz festival to this creature that's there. And they showed me a picture, and I'm like, that's a Pukwudgie. That's clearly a Pukwudgie.
Wow.
And then I would even go so far as to say the closest thing. I often say trolls. But the closest thing that seems to be in terms of their overall physical description and their activities are like true Irish leprechauns. And so when I go through some of the descriptions of like old folklore, I'm like, that's a Pukwudgie. If they weren't calling it a leprechaun, if they weren't calling it a fairy, we'd be calling it a Pukwudgie now.
But Pukwudgie seems so much more devious and destructive.
Well, I mean, some of those, if you read some of those old Irish and English folk tales about getting off the road, just like in the Pukwudgie stories, getting off the road and being someplace where you're invading on their territory. Those fairies and those leprechauns are quite nasty as well.
Oh boy.
So I think over time, they've split and we've broken them up into these categories, and we've got the nice fairies that do things for us, and the little ones that make the wooden shoes for us, and leprechauns are looking for pots of gold. But if you go to a lot of the source material of these, they're pretty scary. Like, stay away from any mountain or mound in Europe, and I think you'll be safe.
Oh, my. Okay. Good advice. Thank you.
So if I ever go to Europe, I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't flat terrain. I don't feel like I'm in Florida. I'm making sure that I protect myself.
Yeah.
Darned.
And we've heard this before from Michael Bastine, who is an Algonquin medicine man. He was talking to us about fairies. He said they're not all nice. So, you got to watch out for these little creatures. So,
and I recently heard a story. One of the things I do is I work on the radio show Spooky South Coast, which is out of the Bridgewater Triangle area. And we had John Tenney on. And John Tenney was telling about a fairy incident that he had in Michigan. And to me, that was clearly a Pukwudgie. So that's my goal next summer, is to get up to this area in Michigan and investigate it for myself, or look into it myself.
Be careful.
Always. Always.
Here's a question for you from the chat room from Klaatu, asking, is this similar to the creature featured in the book and movie Communion?
Well, here's the interesting thing. I would say no. But I'll kind of hedge it with this. I've had people who have spent decades feeling like they had an alien encounter and an alien abduction story happen to them. Once they've read Dark Woods, and once they've read a little bit more of what I've written about Pukwudgies, they almost become convinced that it wasn't an alien, that it was a Pukwudgie.
No kidding.
So, and that's, I think, what I said, like,
view of this.
when we don't know, when the paranormal touches us, we have no frame of reference other than popular culture. And so we latch on to the things that we know. And so when you experience and when something becomes popular, such as aliens, and you get a description of it, and it's close enough to make you feel comfortable with what you might have experienced, you go, okay, that's it. And I think the same thing is true for Pukwudgies. Then when people began hearing these reports, they're saying, that was really close to what I experienced. I feel comfortable that it is partly explained, and so there's a small bit of comfort in knowing that the unknown that you just touched is a little more known.
Yes, that's true. Now, here's another question, or actually statement from Well-Endowed Psychonaut. What a great name. I'm pretty sure the native lore says to not even think about these things, let alone go looking for them.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to dispel a Pukwudgie, it would seem, in all experiences I had except for one, is just to okay, that's fine. Well, I'm not going to go where you asked me not to go, and it's going to happen. In other words, there's no frequent people are tormented for years by Pukwudgies. There's really no stories like that. So it seems to be the only way to get rid of them and the only way to have them stop being a part of your life is to just ignore them, and it will just go away, which is hard to do at the time. But, there are, like I said, there's not a lot of multiple Pukwudgie encounters.
Yeah, that's good. Now, you had your own experience with them trying to lure you into the forest. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I was, and this probably says a lot about who I am as a person. When I went to my bachelor party, instead of doing the traditional bachelor party things, we went on an investigation.
What was that?
And I would probably say, as I'm kind of working back in the field now in a different perspective, it was so not an investigation. It was so much more a legend trip. But we went to this cemetery in New Hampshire called Vale End, and we were going there for several different ghosts that were supposed to be there. And one of the things that had been reported there were these monsters that would physically attack people. And I got this from Fiona Broom and her website, Hollow Hill. And she had actually yanked, right before we went, she had yanked all the stories off of her website because she didn't want to sensationalize this story. And she was really in fear for people's lives. And I was like, that sounds like a great place to go on a bachelor party. So let's go. And as we were in the main part of the cemetery, kind of looking into, a very kind of traditional folklore kind of blue ghost that's supposed to be there. That's a spirit of a jilted wife. I began to see these little puffs of light. The best way to describe it would be, like an orb that you physically see with your eyes, and it becomes just like a burst of light and stays there for a moment and then kind of goes out. I come to learn that these things are called Taipaiwankas. They're probably most associated with like Wisp of the Will or Will of the Wisp. I always forget which way it goes, but yeah. In European folklore, of course. So I'm watching Brave with my daughter, saying "No, those are Taipaiwankas," and she's like, "Dad, please stop." And so I was watching these lights, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to go follow that." And so I went a little bit deeper into it, and I couldn't find anything. And then I saw a little bit deeper in the woods, another one of these little bursts of orb light. And so I went a little deeper into the woods, and then I saw one a little deeper into the woods. And so at some point, after doing this trail for about 5 minutes, I went, you just get that feeling. I'm like, something is luring me into these woods. And if something is luring me, that means that it's probably not friendly. So I made my way back to the main cemetery, and I'm kind of like, all right, guys, we need to kind of get going here. Let's move along to the next part of the cemetery. And then I start to see the lights again. Ooh. And by this time, the people that I'm with see it as well, and they're like, "Oh, let's go." And I'm like, "Nope, we're not going to go follow those." And then pretty soon, the lights start happening with more frequency. And we're standing there in this cemetery, which is not a huge cemetery, a nice small New England cemetery. And we feel like, we're in the middle of the Super Bowl because the lights are just flashing from the woods. And at that point I was like, you know what? This is probably not the best place for us to be right now. So let's slowly start making our way out. And at that point, again, those Tai Paiwunkas are part of kind of like the Pukwudgie triad. And the other element, which once again, this comes from digging deep into the folklore of these things and some original sources, is what can probably best be described. We would feel very comfortable in the paranormal field calling it shadow people. And these shadow people to the Christianized Wampanoags were the devil. And the devil was in control of the Tai Paiwunkas, and the devil was in control of the Pukwudgies. This is the way that their lore eventually becomes kind of changed as it becomes Christianized. As we were going out, we stopped for this other kind of like interesting, these interesting headstones in the cemetery, and we began to see a shadow person literally emerging from the ground behind these tombstones.
Oh my.
And that was the point at which, we said, it's probably best if we just go. I think we've exhausted what we can do here.
Yeah. Now, one of the questions we were discussing off the air, we're going to ask you now, is about, is there any special weapon to kill these things?
Other than your boredom with it, no. Other than just kind of allowing it to play itself out, there really seems to be nothing you can do to dispel or to protect yourself. And the interesting story I was going to tell you is that when I was on the show, Paranormal State, they brought me in as a consultant, but I was here in Florida, and they were investigating in Massachusetts. So their approach was, well, let's record him. Some other questions, we'll record it, and then which is good because I'm not an attractive person, rather than having me on camera, they had my voice. It's my voice seemingly coming out of a speaker box, very, Charlie's Angels. Uh-huh. And so they were asking me questions, and I was answering them via this speaker box, which was interesting because Michelle Belanger asked me all these questions, and I've never talked to her in my life. But I was responding to her because she was literally just being fed questions, and then they would just edit my answers into it.
Right.
And one of the questions they asked me was the same thing you just did. How do you get rid of a Pukwudgie? And I gave the same answer that I just gave you. There's really nothing that's documented that says it. Now, there's something about strawberry bread in the folklore of the Pukwudgie, where the creator god Mashop loved his strawberry bread. And he went off for a while, which seems to be when the Pukwudgies kind of take control of things. And he comes back, and his wife says, you got to stop these Pukwudgies. They're destroying everything. And he's kind of like, I'll get around to it. He's not the most, active creator god in religion. And she says, yeah, but they stole and ate your strawberry bread. And that's when Mashop goes, oh, we must get them. Let's go. And he gathers up his son. So there's this connection between Pukwudgies and strawberry bread. And so whoever is talking to me from Paranormal State says, well, the guy that we've got up here in Massachusetts says we should plant a strawberry bush. And if we plant a strawberry bush, then that will get rid of the Pukwudgies, or it'll be kind of like a peace offering to them. And I say, strawberries? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really seem to make much sense to me, but I don't think it can hurt. So, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe you can plant a strawberry bush. The episode airs. Someone entirely different asks me the question, and my response is, strawberries? Yeah, you should plant a strawberry bush.
Oh, no. They just did such a bad editing job. Oy.
Well, or a great editing job. And as a folklorist, I find that adorable. Look, they edited it to say what they wanted to say because it's very visual for everyone then to go out and plant it. And except for the fact that for the last 5 years now, strawberries seem to be the way to defeat the Pukwudgies. And people, and now there's not a website that I know of that mentions Pukwudgies without saying, as if it were set in stone truth, that the best way to stop a Pukwudgie is to plant a strawberry bush or to do something having to do with strawberries. So the folklorist in me loves the idea, and the person who like did all the research and has been working on this for years goes, no, because now everyone thinks that. So it's an interesting thing you got to live with.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I find it fascinating because, in a lot of the scripted shows, they talk about special weapons that you need to kill vampires or werewolves or whatever. So I had to ask if there was something special for the Pukwudgies. But they are really sinister in their own way. And it sounds like it's great that you backed away from following those lights in the woods.
Yeah, maybe that was a sign that my marriage was doomed to end. I don't know.
I hope not. Gee, that's terrible. Oh my.
Should have taken those Pukwudgie advice, I guess.
Yeah.
No strawberry bread for you.
Oh, goodness. So tell us more about what you found in your dark woods exploration. What was the next thing that you found most troubling about dark woods?
I think you really have to split it into two different halves. It's almost like two different books that I try to connect. The most obvious disturbing thing are the cult crimes, because those are things that really did happen. Those are things where I've been contacted by people who have been involved in it, from the criminal side of it, which is really intimidating and scary. And so those are the things that are disturbing to me because, in addition to being real, many of those crimes are unsolved.
Oh.
And so, and there are a lot of theories. There are a lot of different ideas about what might have happened. I track it, out into then parts of Rhode Island. Like once it kind of gets too hot in the forest for this because of all this activity, the major really deep cult, the deepest level of the cult kind of moves on to Rhode Island. But I track it even Freetown, that it was in kind of what is Essex County. When you think of the Salem area, the Salem, Massachusetts area, not in Salem, but like that part of Massachusetts. I'm able to kind of track them across the state and then settling in Freetown for about 20 years. But those are people who still exist. Those are things that were real. Those were crimes. Those are real. Those are real people who still don't know where their families are from abductions and things like that. There are still a lot of people who don't know, who their daughter's killer was. And that's something that's going to be explored by the same guy who did the Bridgewater Triangle one. He's working on, a documentary on one of those serial killers that, I was like, what, I'm going to hand this off to you because I ran into more dead ends and it kind of freaks me out. And so he's taking up that kind of gauntlet to try to solve those cases with some of the law enforcement that are now retired there. Wow, so there's that part of it.
Yeah.
But in terms of and it's crazy to think that ever you would think of things like zombies and monsters and suicides as being comforting or the easy part of it. I would say probably the most intimidating part of the forest from a paranormal perspective would be the Assonet Ledge.
Yeah, now that sounded like it had its own bunch of dark power. When people got up there, they were normal, and then after a few minutes, they were crazed.
Right, and it really fits in, and once again, this is a term that I always mess up, but the whole stone record theory, the stone record theory of this Assonet Ledge was a quarry for years until there was an accident and people died, and so they closed it down, and there seems to be something in these rocks that has kind of picked up the juice of the negativity of the Bridgewater Triangle and the Freetown State Forest specifically, and then has kind of emanated that in that area, so that people then oftentimes, I shouldn't say oftentimes, but there have been over 24 suicides at this ledge. Some of the attempted suicides, or ones that have been stopped, people have reported almost like stepping outside themselves or being hit when they arrive there with a sudden, all-consuming depression, like that they needed to end their life. People have seen the ghosts of people jumping from the cliffs, from the ledge. People have reported a woman in black up there who is supposed to be, someone who was up there waiting for their lover who never showed up, so she committed suicide. And they have physically seen this woman, both jumping and then kind of at that top part of the ledge. People have seen ghost lights coming from the water within the quarry. They've seen lights kind of rise to the surface, almost as if something is trying to escape. Now, when I was talking to Alan Alves, in addition to however many suicides, which is a really hard number to confirm, according to him, the entire Freetown State Forest is a dumping ground for crime. So people commit murders, for example, and they dump the bodies in Freetown because of its access to Boston, to Providence, to Brockton, to Springfield, some bigger cities, in New England in that area. And he says very specifically, like, we know there are bodies down at the bottom of the Sonnet Ledge in that quarry. We can't get to them. We can't, every time we go down there to explore them. Now, this is his word, so I don't know too much about this kind of stuff, but he says the water becomes too cold and the machines can't go down there and it's too murky and all these kinds of things. Or people just don't care enough to actually put the money and the investment into go getting it, even though people have confessed to having dumped bodies there and things like that. So whether these ghost lights were actually spirits of people who are still, trapped in that water area, that's what it sounds like to me when they're trying to rise to the surface and then getting kind of almost like pushed back down.
Now, what about the possibility that this ledge could be set with a curse? Because the Wampanoags were treated badly, and as you mentioned in the book, some of them even jumped off the cliff rather than being taken prisoner. But do you think it's possible that one of them or a group of them left a curse there so that people would have that horrible experience of wanting to kill themselves?
It is always a chicken and the egg thing when you're dealing with the Bridgewater Triangle. Although it should be said that when the Wampanoags were there was no ledge. The ledge was created by blasting for the quarry. Because I was corrected by that years ago, and I was like, you know what? Excellent. Like, rather than be defensive and be like, no, you're calling me a liar, I'm like, I just learned something. And so those reports might have happened other places, although it should be said that people have noticed people who look like Native Americans from hundreds of years ago coming down the ledge as if they were falling from it. But there's no actual Wampanoags who died going over the ledge. Okay. That said, every time you seem to come to an answer and be like, okay, I can grab this. Like, all right, so King Philip's War, which happened in 1675, horrible things happened. It was the last great kind of battle. It pretty much wiped out the Wampanoag tribe, except for small pockets of them. That must be why the Bridgewater Triangle is haunted. That must be why Freetown is the way it is. They've put a curse on it. Until you go further back and you find out that the Native Americans really didn't want Freetown. They were kind of freaked out by it. So these different locations in the Bridgewater Triangle that we think of as maybe being cursed by the Native Americans were things that the Native Americans saw as being dark and sinister before we ever got here. And so you're like, okay, where does this start then? Where does it start? I do think that there's a lot of paranormal in that area that is connected to the negativity of the two people clashing. And I think that the possibility for a curse exists. It's just really hard for me to definitively say, yes, I think that this is specifically from that conflict, a curse was set. Although, there have been psychics that have been brought in that have communicated with spirits who say, no, if you bring back certain things, one of them is, and I don't think I get into it into Dark Woods because I hadn't fully explored the idea yet. But one of them is this Wampanoag wampum belt, which was taken in another corner of the Bridgewater Triangle. And people have said when that belt is returned, because it's kind of lost to history, then the weird stuff in the Bridgewater Triangle will stop.
Oh, interesting.
And it's if that's in Ghosts of the Bridgewater Triangle, which is another Schiffer book I wrote, and I kind of go into detail about what the wampum belt means to the tribe and how it might be the kind of conduit to kind of funnel this negative energy. Wow.
That's interesting. Well, we're going to come back and talk more about all of this, possible curses and suicides and things going on in the dark woods, which I will never go to. And
and I'll not go with you.
yes. All right. Okay. You got a deal there. We're never going. Anyways, we will be right back, everybody. You are listening to...
Listening to IRN, the Inception Radio Network, Chicago, Illinois.
Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Just a reminder that Inception Radio Network is on Twitter. Follow us at I_R_N and keep up to date about who's on tonight, what interviews they'll be doing, who's guest spotting, what topics they'll be covering. Tweet to us, tweet about us, retweet topics to your friends, and most importantly, never miss a great show again. That's I_R_N.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
My name is Ezra, and I'm from the highendorg. You've heard of medical marijuana, but who can you trust for proper guidance? Here at the highendorg, we have all the information you need. Did you know that scientists have discovered cannabis can reduce inflammation, pain, and spasms? It's helped my patients reduce the symptoms of autoimmune diseases, PTSD, autism, and insomnia. A compound from hemp called CBD is doing wonders for intestinal issues, anxiety, and the nervous system. I sell this compound at thehighendorg. I've worked as a medical marijuana consultant and educator for the past 6 years, and here at thehighendorg, I can help you choose from the hundreds of cannabis strains and products and find the ones that are best for your needs. To learn more about cannabis, schedule a Skype or phone consultation, or to have a CBD product shipped right to your door, visit thehighendorg. That's the high end, all one word, .org. I'll help make your health high-end.
Hello, Inception Radio Network. Would you like your favorite show to be played again live on air? Well, now the choice is in your hands with IRN's live request portal, an easy way to request your favorite show with a simple click. IRN's live request portal now gives you exclusive access to all the shows. How easy is it? Simply type a show name or a guest name, click request, even write a dedication message, and that's it. Try it now. Simply visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com, click on the live request tab under the show menu. Now playing your favorite show is just a mouse click away.
Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best.
Are you ready for a new experience of freedom and powerful connection? Would you like a positive, effortless change in your life? Then come to CosmicFusion.com, where we offer the most advanced energy clearing and expansion techniques in the world, with a quantum vortex energy to activate your divine blueprint and life's purpose. When your soul leads the way with cosmic fusion and quantum vortex energy, you can break clear of past difficulties and blocks with the power of the source. With cosmic fusion, the source energy does the work for you. It's easy and effortless. Listen to our free meditation right from our Cosmic Fusion website, the Cosmic Code Meditation. Sign up for one of our interactive webinars today. Come to Cosmic Fusion, www.kosmicfusion.com, to experience an effortless awakening and transformation. Are you ready for an upgrade? Are you ready for a new experience of living in the fifth dimensional magic and powerful connection? Then visit CosmicFusion.com today. CosmicFusion.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, here with my co-host, PK, and our terrific guest tonight, Chris Balzano, who is the author of 7 books on the paranormal. And tonight, we're talking to him about the very scary, very spooky, dark woods. I really recommend it. Don't you, PK?
Oh, definitely. And you better make sure that you can huddle up in the corner because it's scary.
It is. It's very great. Great book. So here's a question from the chat room, and then I know, PK, you've got a question.
Right.
Too. So this is from Daria. Daria wants to know, Chris, do you know of something called a domovos? They look similar to the Pukwudgies that you've been describing.
No, I don't. How is it spelled?
Domovois. I may not be pronouncing it correctly.
I don't know if I'm getting that, confused with a very similar mythology behind the golem of Jewish folklore. Is that I don't know if those two things are connected for some reason. My mind is connecting them in the same kind of stories.
I don't know. I know a lot about the golem. It's a very different kind of creature.
Right. But I think I've run across that word like in Jewish folklore tradition. But that's the best I can do with that word.
Okay.
But I would love to hear more about it. So I just wrote down how to spell
Daria,
it.
if you want to give us more info, we're happy to talk about it. So PK, you've got a question. It's a good one.
Yeah, I was asking you about the stone that they have and I was wondering if that stone where the ridge is, if that was in other areas besides that one, or if it's indigenous to that one space where all the bodies go.
So in researching the where some of the stone went, and of course I can't follow every rock, but I was able to come up with a few different places, 4 places in particular, and all 4 of those places are extremely haunted. 2 of them are were known as the Breakers, which are which they are these mansions that are in Newport, Rhode Island, that are right on the ocean. One of the other locations is Fort Adams, which is also in Rhode Island, which has become very recently the groups that I work with, the show Spooky South Coast, has done some events there, and it's a very, very haunted location. Which is interesting because when I was writing the book, I went out to Fort Adams, and there were like a few scattered reports, and the people who worked there were like, well, the people have seen this and that, and now it has kind of new people who are running it, and they're really much more open to talk about the stuff that's happened there. And the 4th place is one of the things that sparked me going out into the Bridgewater Triangle, and that would be the Taunton State Hospital. Which was originally the Taunton State Hospital for the Criminally Insane. It had a really antiquated, derogatory title to it. It was like, big building where crazy people who commit crimes are, which over the years has become, it served kind of different purposes. Part of it burnt down a few years ago. But one of the areas of it, the foundation, which is where the rock ended up, many of my juvenile criminal students were there. It was a secure lockup there. It was a secure lockup, kind of like a step down before my program. And those kids had more stories of things like shadow people and strange happenings and phantom people who were working there. There were reports from people who had worked there that the basement, once again, that's where the stone is, the basement had been used by a cult who was using some of the more incapacitated inhabitants in rituals.
Oh, my.
And so I had kids who were pretty much like hardcore gangbangers who would not go into that basement. And one of the workers I spoke to, you were kind of talking about it earlier in the show when we opened up. They went down there and they experienced a time slip where they were experiencing one of the ceremonies. And they heard the chanting. They saw the people gathered around in robes. They saw someone in the middle. And as they kind of reacted and they hit the bottom step, reality snapped back in. The time slip kind of was over. And, they immediately quit working there. So, this stone seems to have kind of brought a little bit of what is the Freetown State Forest to these different parts of New England.
Gosh, that's powerful. Powerful stuff.
I think I'd reinvent those buildings.
Yeah.
Stone out of there.
And I think, especially with things that are trapped in stone like that, and of course, Massachusetts and New England has some historically famous haunted rocks and haunted rock formations. But I'm also a firm believer in that that kind of stuff dissipates, that stuff, the most paranormal energy cannot remain in a location for a very long time. We have, revolutionary ghosts and ghosts of Native Americans that lived 300-400 years ago. But I think the majority of the paranormal world eventually kind of just fades away on its own due to environmental changes, due to construction changes. This can sometimes spark a paranormal incident, but I think it also kind of interrupts it. I used to tell people when they would be experiencing something, especially something that seemed like a residual haunting, I'm like, the first thing you need to do is, if your house needs a humidifier, get a humidifier. If it needs a dehumidifier, get a dehumidifier. Change the environment. And I was always surprised at how oftentimes that would stop a haunting in a location. Just those little environmental
something
changes.
Simple like that. Isn't that interesting?
I think it is, because if ghosts in particular, I think Pukwudgies are a different thing. Like, you push them off to the side, I think they extend beyond just being a ghost. But I think if these ghost things are, if ghosts are things that work on energy and work on being received by humans, by the living, in terms of being able to perceive the energy, I think oftentimes the tumblers have to be correct. Like, it has to be a combination of the environment as well as the juice of whatever the spirit might be, along with the observer, which is why some people see them and some people don't see them at all. And if you change that situation, if you change that lock, those tumblers don't fit anymore, and oftentimes it just disrupts the paranormal.
That makes sense. And I think a lot of these rocks are along ley lines, and you have an electromagnetic force that's pretty powerful, because my own personal opinion is if you have an electromagnetic force, it's creating another field of energy. And I think it's that field that these things can come and go from. So and then, like you mentioned, if there's construction going on or you put a cell phone tower somewhere, it does disrupt the electromagnetic force. So, yeah, you're right. That could create a lot of change. Well, here's what Daria had to say about these creatures, the Domovas. She said, this is a creature we hear about in Russia. So maybe this is the Russian Pukwudgie.
Okay. Yeah, I'm totally going to have to do more research into that because, like I said, I think that they appear all throughout the world. They're just called different things. Right. And I think, I'm much more on the folklorist side of things now. And I think that all monsters of this type are a reflection of the cultures that believe in them. And so they often say more of what we're scared of and what we need to confront our fears of the different cultures that experience them, which is why a leprechaun and a Pukwudgie might be the same kind of creature, but the two cultures that are observing them need different things from them, and so therefore kind of put different things into them. So I would be very interested in researching the Russian version.
Yeah, we got to hear back from you so we can announce what you found. Now, what about UFOs in Freetown Forest? Any reports of that?
There are, and when I first started to research this, I kind of stayed away from UFOs, and as I learned more about the Bridgewater Triangle and just the connection between those things and the connection between a huge amount of cryptid sightings in the area. I really started to specialize in what was kind of in like my shed, which would be the paranormal. And I discovered that someone who I had known years before, who I worked in a restaurant with, was the leading expert of UFOs and cryptids in that area. And I was like, really? We were just both doing the same research and didn't even know it. And we were working alongside each other.
Oh, my.
And so over the course of time, I've just kind of passed off all that stuff. I've been down here. I hate to say it, but I've been down here in Florida for 8 years now. And in that 8-year span, especially like with the showing of the Bridgewater Triangle and Pukwudgies on Monsters and Something, that TV show.
Monsters and Mysteries?
Monsters and Mysteries, right. It was like that. And then the Bridgewater Triangle documentary, which can now be like streamed on Amazon, if you've got Amazon Prime for free, and like all these different things that have come out. People are doing really good work in the Bridgewater Triangle. And people say, hey, what do you think about this? And I always feel, like it's the version of the Rolling Stones trying to comment on Taylor Swift. Like, I know nothing about what's going on now. You guys are the experts now. Like, you guys are the ones that are not that I would compare myself to the Rolling Stones, but, you guys are the ones that are doing it. Like, everything I know, you've read. It was in my books. It was in, interviews I've given. Like, you guys are the experts now. Like, don't bring me in. I feel like the old guy being brought in as a consultant for something. And so I know that there are a lot of really good people. Anyone who's listening to the show can just type in Bridgewater Triangle UFOs and you're going to find a ton of stuff.
No kidding.
I am just not an expert in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of portals in this dark woods area, and things can come and go as they please, and take people with them if they please. That's the scary part.
Yeah, and that's one of the portals are getting a lot of momentum in the paranormal field the last couple of years, and people who are kind of researching portals, or they're coming back to me saying like, oh yeah, there was a portal there, like we really think that this is one of those places. And there was a mention in really, really deep Wampanoag folklore of something which had, once again, over time, it had just gone translated and then Christianized to the dark ones or the ancient ones, and that the Bridgewater Triangle area was where the ancient ones had stepped as they were walking the earth. I think that fits in with everything. I think it fits in with your ley line idea, which, because people have said that's an area. It fits in with this kind of this portal or vortex idea, that it's just kind of it just seems to be a place that has been touched.
Definitely. I mean, I can't think of any other reason why these things would be able to come and go so prolifically and so easily.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why the Bridgewater Triangle is so appealing to people, is because, if you're a cryptozoologist, it's there. If you're a ghost person, it's there. If you're a UFO person, it's there. If you believe in ley lines, we got that. If you believe in geology, we got that. So it really is one of those places where if you have a paranormal theory or a paranormal starting point, you're going to be able to find something in the Bridgewater Triangle that connects to it.
Stop shopping.
Yeah, you got it all.
Good for all time zones.
You've got it all. Freetown Forest here in Massachusetts. Now, have you heard? You must have heard of Skinwalker Ranch.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you think that dark woods, the Bridgewater Triangle, is similar?
I do. And I think that. When I hear, if you were to just kind of take the southwestern feel from that and just kind of strip it and just tell the stories in their most barest form, they're going to sound like Freetown State Forest stories. So I really do think that that is another one of the locations that is very much like the Bridgewater Triangle in Freetown.
Yeah, and because it also has that very negative feeling about it. In fact, I was talking to one of our former guests today, Don Oscar. Remember Don Oscar? Mm-hmm. PK, the wonderful shaman from Peru. And I asked him if he had heard of that, and he hadn't. He was going to look into it. But he was saying how a lot of these things can take on they're actually fear projections of the people who go there. So in some cases, you could go there, I guess, if your heart's open and you're not afraid, you're not going to experience that same negativity as you would with fear. He said fear really does trap you. It becomes a very dense energy, makes it very hard to navigate through places like the Freetown Forest or Skinwalker Ranch.
And I know of people who go to the Freetown State Forest, which I should point out that a large part of it is now kind of like the last existing Wampanoag reservation that they use for special ceremonies and for tribal business. I know people that go into especially those ceremonial areas with very good intent. And people who are practitioners that strongly believe in energy, whether it's Wiccan, whether it's people who try to manipulate nature, they have very positive experiences there. They might get a creepy sensation or they might have something happen to them, which I talk about in the book, but they find it a very powerful place to work from.
Yeah, see, isn't that interesting? Well, here's another question from our psychonaut. Would like to know, where in Michigan are you going to investigate?
I don't know Michigan well enough, but I know it's the thumb.
Okay, it's the thumb.
It's the thumb, and I now have, oddly enough, a lot of friends down here in Florida who are from Michigan. And so I kind of have a feeling for where it is. And I remember listening to the interview, and I think he has told the story of this location. I'm sure if you just kind of go into your local search engine and type in John Tenney Ferry, or obviously I would want you to go to Spooky South Coast and try to get the audio from us.
Right.
But he's told the story multiple times, and I remember when I heard the story, I thought I heard him say, "Did he just say upper thumb?" and I know enough people from Michigan who are from the upper thumb or who know the upper thumb who often say, and I don't want to insult any Michigan people, but they're like, yeah, those people in the thumb, man, they're weird. And so I was like, I think he just did say upper thumb. So he was referring it to it as the upper thumb. That's about all I have right now. Although we have a relationship with John, so hopefully he's going to be able to give me. It's kind of like he's holding it tight to his vest because the story is popular enough that he doesn't want an influx of people trying to experience these. But I'm hoping that he'll kind of give up the ghost, if you will, for me and allow me to know where it is.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Well, you've got to come back on the show and tell us about it, please.
I will.
Right.
It's going to be an interesting road trip. So.
It sounds like fun. Now, here's a question from Carol. Carl wants to know, how would a portal present itself? If one happened upon a portal, might one see shimmers or distortions, or would we feel it in our gut?
I think you would feel it in your gut. And, one of the things, if you go out and you get dark woods, first of all, get it from a library. Don't buy it. It doesn't make me any money at this point. Just go out and get it from a library or something.
You can buy his other books, though.
Yeah, buy my other ones. There's the show. And one of the things that I'm attacked on, with kind of the Amazon reviews is like, this guy, it's that kind of switch of, now the paranormal is science, and anything that's not science, we don't necessarily like for some people. And I go with no, there is a negative energy there. And people feel it, and that can be dismissed. But I think that is as relevant and as strong as any kind of thing you might perceive with your other five senses. And so I think that there are portals that can change. I think that's how they present themselves. I'm not sure if they present themselves physically. And I think that you can feel them open. So, if anyone wants to see me in action and see my old working in a jail moves, you can type in to go to YouTube, and you can type in when Pukwudgies attack, and you're going to see an incident of and I named it that basically. Once again, it was kind of sensationalism. It was promotion for a book, but it's kind of caught on. It's got 100,000 views, in the years since I put it up there. And it's been shown on TV. It's been shown on all these different places. And it's basically a woman who seems to all of a sudden become possessed. And then she starts kind of freaking out, and I jump in and I take her out. And what happens before that we catch that is, I was working on one of my books. Part of the book had a DVD, so we were videotaping investigations. We had just stopped the investigation. This was at the Assonet Ledge. And the woman who you see, who seems to become possessed, she's very sensitive. She's a trans medium, and she has had this kind of thing happen to her before. And we're closing up, and me, who doesn't necessarily, especially at that time, feel very psychically connected, I felt a definite shift in the climate of that area. And it wasn't that like I felt a cold breeze. Like, it was literally I was no longer in the same place. It was as if something had opened up and literally come into where we were. Like, it was that tangible. And I said, whoa. I stopped everyone, and we had stopped filming. I stopped everyone, and I said, something has changed. Like, I feel it. Something dramatically has changed. And I look at her and I say, you know what I'm talking about, right? And at that moment, her eyes roll back. I say to the cameraman, don't stop. Come back here. Come back. And that's where you get the footage. So that entire incident began with what to me felt like something opening up and into our world at that moment, which very well could have been a portal.
Yes, it sounds that way. Yes. And I've heard them also described as shimmering, or you see a small distortion. And yes, I've heard all of these. It's very interesting, this whole concept of portals. Certainly, if you watch Stranger Things, they talk quite a bit about that's what's going on, is the portals.
Right. And there are instances of shimmering in the both the Freetown State Forest and in the Bridgewater Triangle book, but they always seem to be kind of eventually take on human form. So the person sees the shimmer, and then it becomes form-like and moves, almost like Predator. Like in the Predator movies, which is the way that they've described it to me.
Yes,
and so. Right. So I've never experienced where it's like it becomes a shimmer and then it's kind of situated in an area. I've always heard more stories of it like this shimmering becoming something.
Wow.
So.
Oh gosh, well, all of those things are right here in Massachusetts. Oh my goodness. So how about Bigfoot? People have reported that too, right?
Yeah, and Bridgewater itself, the three Bridgewaters, which was kind of Loren Coleman, the cryptozoologist who coined the phrase Bridgewater Triangle. That was his original starting point, was pretty much the Bigfoot and cryptid sightings in those three towns. And then he started kind of branching out as he was getting more stories of weirdness. The Freetown State Forest, not as much as other parts of the Bridgewater Triangle, but especially the Bridgewater area. Many people consider the heart of the Bridgewater Triangle the Hockomock Swamp, and there have been Bigfoot sightings there as well. So it's definitely a place that is known in New England as kind of like the Bigfoot capital of that area.
Oh my goodness! See, look
as well
at
as giant snakes and big pterodactyls like thunderbirds and things like that. So and these gigantic demon type dogs and
the hellhounds.
The hellhounds,
too, huh?
You all live in the hot spots. I'm just living in the hot spot.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I'm in Southwest Florida, so it's pretty hot down here as well. So.
Oh gosh, but you said you miss Massachusetts, huh?
I definitely miss Massachusetts. Yes. There's a deep history here as well, but it's deep. And it's really one of those places where, to some degree, it's lost touch with its personality. It's lost touch with the stories of its past because so many people here are not from here. And so because it's kind of gone through these cycles of different ways of people living here and different, right now it's, there are a lot of, for example, Canadians and Germans who kind of bring their stuff with them, but they buy like whole neighborhoods and then rent them out to people and stuff like that. And so it's really hard to get a handle on the personality of a place because everything is shifting all the time here. That's my goal. That's, I've just, after 8 years, I've really kind of put my flag in the ground of trying to track more of those things down.
What about the Cuban influence in that area because of their, we'll say, voodoo type things or whatever that they've used in the past? Has that influence been brought over and utilized more?
We're going to have to wrap this up real quick. So,
I was going to say, I think in this area probably has more Haitian than it has Cuban, where I am on the other coast. And so I think that that's probably a deep influence. But once again, like a lot of those people have kind of pushed those beliefs aside because they feel like they want to make their children especially more American. And so they've lost a little bit of that.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show with this fabulous.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Delightful.
And keep in touch and let us know. Shoot us an email when you've done your Michigan investigation or any others. We'd love to have you come back.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you having me on, and I'm hoping that I can come back and talk to you guys again.
Oh, please.
Look forward to it.
Absolutely love it.
Look forward to it.
Now, next week, we're back to dreaming, lucid dreams, where guess what? You get your own portal. So, everybody, this is going to be cool. And until next week, we will see you on the Blue Highway like we always do. Good night, everyone.
Good night.